Hello and welcome to Database Management Systems. I'm Jovita Christie, and in this video I'm going to explain structured query language and specifically the update and delete queries which can be used to modify the data. So it is part of the data manipulation language. And then I'm going to teach several constraints that are available to put into different tables of the database. And finally, I'm going to explain 3 commands which can be used for transaction management within structured query language. So let's get started. Firstly, we are going to see the update and delete queries. So the update query looks like this. You have update. This is a keyword. So you can see whenever I'm writing syntax, I'm always trying to put all the keywords in capital letters and everything else in small letters. So this makes it easier for you to look at the query. So you have update, which is a keyword, after which you will mention the name of the table where you want to make all these changes, and then set, which is a keyword, and then you mention the name of the column, and after that you mention what value you want to replace, because update means you are trying to change the value of something. So that's why this is the column where you want to change the value, and this is the new value that you'll be providing. And so you can make changes to multiple columns for several tuples at the same time, and then after that you can mention the where condition, and this would allow you to specify which rows exactly you want to update. And then the next query is a delete query, which uses the delete from keywords, and then you write the name of the table and specify the condition. So that way you can delete the rows, delete several rows from the table based on the condition that you have specified. Now let's see what this looks like in SQL Plus. So you can open SQL Plus and log in, and then you can perform these queries. So first of all, I have already created a table, so I'm going to show you its description. It is a person table with only ID and name, 2 columns, and those are the data types. And then I have mentioned all the data that is there inside. So select star from person, that gives you all the data, which you can see here. Now I'm going to update from this particular table, and you can see that here the ID is 1 and I want to make it 2. So I'm going to write down person set ID equal to 2 where name equal to Matthew. So that is my condition, and you can specify whatever condition you want and whatever column you want to change. So those things you can specify. You can change multiple columns by putting a comma over here. And now let's see what the table looks like. You can see that there is a change. This was 1 earlier and now it is 2. Now the next query that I have is delete. So I'm going to delete the 5th person. So delete from person where ID equal to 5. So it says 1 row deleted, and I can check it out. You can see that this entry with 5 Judas is gone. So that's what you can do with the delete and update queries. Now next we are going to move on to several constraints that are available to you in SQL, and these allow you to define your tables in such a way that people are less likely to enter incorrect data inside, because you will specify some rules about that. And so the first constraint is the not null constraint. And let's go ahead and directly just perform a practical and understand it. So again, this is my SQL Plus command line. I'm going to create a new table for this. So I'm creating a new table person 1. Remember that tables have to have unique names. So I'm creating person 1 and not person because I created that earlier. Now the constraint can be specified right here. You have to write down the name of the column, data type, and the constraint. So afterwards, now I'll try to insert a null value. First, I'll try to insert a value that's not null. So I'm inserting 1 and John, and it says 1 row created. There was no problem. And now with up arrow key, using the same query, I have changed it and inserted null. So you can see it says cannot insert null. This is the error because I set this constraint to be not null. But if I try to insert this into the original person table that I used in the previous query, it works fine, and it inserts John without an ID in person table. But this does not work for the current person one table because of the not null constraint. Now the next constraint is the unique constraint that makes sure that the values you enter into a particular column are unique and not duplicate values. So let's see it in SQL command line. You need to create a table, and I'm naming it person 2. And within it, I'm specifying again ID with number 2 data type, and next to it you have to write down unique. So this means the unique constraint is specified, it's applied to that column. And now let's insert some data and check it. So insert into person 2, values, and first ID is 1 and name is John. This will get inserted successfully. And next we try to insert a duplicate value. So that means I'm inserting the same ID again. And you can see it says unique constraint violated because I'm trying to insert 1 again. Now I'm going to show you what data is actually inserted in the previous table, person 1 that I used for not null. And if I try to enter ID 1 and John into this, and Mary into this, it inserts. There is no problem because there is no there is no unique constraint in that table. So not null constraint prevents null values from being inserted, and unique constraint prevents duplicate values from being inserted. Now the next constraint that I'm going to explain is the primary key constraint, which is the combination of the unique and not null constraints. So let's see it with an example in the SQL console. So let's go ahead and first of all create a table. I'm going to write create table person 3 this time, and a column ID with number 2 data type, and going to make a primary key. So you write down primary space key next to ID, and then define rest of the columns as you would define normally. Once the table's created, let's insert data into it. So I'm doing insert into person 3 values, and I'm inserting 1 comma John, and there's no problem because there's no data yet in the table. Now next I'm trying to insert 1 comma Mary, and it says unique constraint violated. And then I'm trying to insert null value, and it says cannot insert null into person 3 ID. So you can see that just by specifying something as a primary key, it takes care of both the not null as well as the unique constraints. So, and always remember, you can insert null value in this manner. You have to write capital letters null without using any single quotes, even if it's a character data type. So this is what the primary key constraint looks like. Now next we are going to see the foreign key constraint with an example in the SQL console. So for this again, let's create a table. Now I'm going to create two this time. So one table is customers table with cust_id, and I'm going to keep the data type number 2 and make it a primary key. And the next thing I want is the name of the customer, and then it says table created. So I'm going to go ahead and add some values into this. So very quickly, I'm going to add first of all 1, John. And next you can press up arrow key to get the previous query and then just edit over there. Yes, so I'm entering 2, Mark, and then 3, Luke. So that's 3 rows inserted. And then I'm going to check if those rows are there. So it is select star from customers, and I can see all 3 rows are present. Now I'll create another table, orders table, that contains order ID with number 2 data type. And this is a primary key. And now I'll add a second column called customer ID, and this will be a foreign key referred from the customers table. So I'm going to write down cust_ID number 2, that's the data type. And for the foreign key, you will be mentioning references and then name of that table from where it refers. So it is customers table and the name of the column that is being referred from customers, which is cust_ID. And the third column I'm adding here is the quantity of the order. So it says table created. And now I can do select star from, I'm just showing you the values which are there in customers. And now I'll insert values into orders. And currently my orders table is empty, which I can show you here. Okay, just because you added a foreign key doesn't mean the values appear on their own. You still have to insert those values. And I'll show you where foreign key does its work. So I'm going to insert here a value. 1 is the order ID, then another one for customer ID, and 20 is the quantity, and that is inserted successfully. As you can see, there is 1 row now in orders. And now I'm going to go ahead and run the same query with a different customer ID, and which is 4, and it says unique constraint violated, and the reason for this is that I'm having order ID as a primary key, so I cannot insert 1 again as order ID. Now the next type of error that I can get is when I am changing the order ID to 2, so it is unique, but it says integrity constraint violated. Now when can you get this type of an error? When the customers table contains these 3 rows, as you can see here, it contains 3 rows, which are 1, 2, and 3, and customer IDs available to us are only 1, 2, and 3. But you are trying to insert customer ID 4 into orders. So which is a violation? When you say foreign key, then the values in orders customer ID column should come from the customer ID column of customers. If it doesn't come from here, means it is not 1, 2, or 3, then it gives you an error. That is what a foreign key constraint does. Now the next constraint is the check constraint. Let's see it with an example. So for this, I'm going to create a table called students, and I'm going to have an ID, and I'm not making a primary key. It doesn't matter for this. If you want, you can create one. That's not what I'm demonstrating, that's why. And then name with variable character 20. And then I'm creating a third column called marks. and making it number 3 and applying the check constraint. So I'm going to write down check and then I'll mention marks greater than 70. So what this does is it allows you to enter only those people's data, those students' data whose marks are more than 70. So let's try it out. So I'm trying to insert into this table. I'm inserting a student with ID 1, named John, and marks 100, and it's inserted successfully. Now let's insert something with less than 100. So I'm inserting ID 2, name Judas, and marks 50. And that says check constraint violated. And you can see that in my students table, there's only one row inserted with marks 100 and not the one that I tried to insert afterwards. So this is what check constraint is. Now the next thing is the check constraint again, but using this keyword called in, which allows you to specify a list of possible values for that column. So let's see it with an example. So again, all these constraints are specified while creating a table. So that's why I'm creating tables every time. So I'm creating a table people with ID number 2, name variable character 20, and gender with data type variable character 10. And after this, I'm specifying the check constraint where I'm writing check and then bracket gender in and then bracket and specifying values which are permissible in this. So F, M. And remember to close those brackets which you opened. So it says table created. And now I'm going to insert into this. So I'm going to insert into people values 1, Mary, F for female, and that gets inserted. There's no problem. And I can see that that row is inserted. Now I'm going to insert again Mary, but this time I'm writing female, the full word. And you can see that it says check constraint violated because I'm only accepting F and M letters and not the whole word. Now I'm trying to insert another person with capital M and it is inserted. So you can see this way you can restrict people to entering only those values which you want to be seen in your table. And now my last constraint is the default constraint, which allows you to specify certain default values for your table, which can be inserted in case you try to insert a null value. So let's see it with an example. So again, we're going to create a table this time and name it employees table. And here I'm going to specify the column ID with number 2 data type and then name with variable character 20 and salary. And at this point, I'm going to use the default constraint after the data type. So after mentioning the data type, I'm going to write down default and then specify the default value, which I am making 30, as you can see here. So default value is 30,000. Now when I'm inserting something into employees table, so I'm trying to insert, you can see that I'm trying to insert the name and salary only. So that's why I'm specifying it here. If I want to insert everything, I can directly write values without specifying the column names. Now you can see I'm inserting only name and salary for John. So when you see the table, the ID is blank, which means it is null. And now next time I'm going to insert ID and name, but not the salary. So I'm inserting the ID and the name for the same person, John. So I'm inserting 1, comma, John. And when I run it, it says again 1 row created. But this time when you look at it, you can see that although I did not insert a salary, 30,000 got inserted because I had created that as a default value for the salary column. So if you leave salary null, then it will by default insert 30,000. But it did not insert a default value for ID because I did not specify 1 for ID. So that's the default constraint. Next, we are going to see the transaction control commands. And these are the commands that will be very helpful for transaction management in SQL. So one such command is savepoint. Next, you have rollback and you have commit. So let's see all three of them with an example in the SQL console. So here, I'm going to use one of the previously created tables. So I have a table called person containing these 5 rows. And this is the schema. And within this, I'm going to insert some data. Okay, so I'm inserting insert into person values. So here I'm inserting a 6th person, number 6, and naming that person Paul. And it says 1 row created. And then I'm specifying a save point, and I'll tell you what that does. So save point is specified in this manner. You are going to write down over there save point S1. So S1 is the name of the save point, and you can name it whatever you want. So save point just means that up to that point your work is saved. And now I'm inserting another row, 7 and Judas. And now I'm going to do select star from person, and you can see that all 7 people are there present right now. Now I'll show you what happens when you do a rollback. So I'm doing rollback work to S1, and it says rollback complete. So S1 is the name of the save point that I created previously. And now you can see what happens when I do select star from person. You can see 7 and Judas that is gone from my table. And the reason why that's gone is because I created a save point S1, and then I stored all the data up to S1, and that data included all the people from ID 1 to ID 6, but did not include 7 Judas, which I inserted after the save point. And so when I do rollback work to save point S1, then it removes everything that I did after S1. And that's why you cannot see 7 Judas present in this table, which was there earlier. Okay, and the last command that we're going to see in this video is the commit command, very important. And it's very simple also. You simply have to write down commit and semicolon. What that does is saves your work up till now. Sometimes when you create tables and enter data, and then you close this SQL command line, sometimes it hasn't yet finished saving all your data. So the next time when you come and open it, you will see that your data is gone. Sometimes tables are gone, or sometimes tables are there, but there's no data inside. So commit command is used to save whatever work you've done so far. So make sure that you're doing commit after everything that you do in your SQL command line. So that's it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.